Hey students, we are moving on to Unit 2 today. We're going to be talking about multiplying fractions. Now this should be a review from 5th grade, but we're going to go over a few things, just kind of review to get you refreshed and your mind's thinking about multiplying fractions. So here we go. Hey students, we are going to go over your bell work first today. Let's look at number 1. Number 1 is dealing with adding decimals. So let's add some decimals. Now, first thing, when you're adding numbers, it doesn't matter what order you put them in to add them. So on this one, I'm just going to do this. That's not a good color. Let's get a good color here. Color that we can easily see. All right, so I'm just going to rewrite this. 153 and 1/10, and then 12 and 43 hundredths. Now, the key to adding and subtracting decimals is to make sure that these decimals line up. That matters. They have to line up. Now, if you have any spaces, you can always put a 0 there. So we're going to put a 0 there. You could put a 0 before the 1 there if you wanted to. Now let's add. So I'm going to go 0 plus 3 is 3. 4 plus 1 is 5. Bring my decimal down. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. And 1 plus 0 is 1. So I have 165 and 53 hundredths. Pretty simple. Hopefully that's a little bit of a review for you. Now on the subtraction, I am going to go over the subtraction because I have seen a lot of mistakes in some of these other problems that we've attempted to do in bell work. Guys, in subtraction, the order does matter. You always have to have the bigger number on top of the smaller number. So we can easily see that this right here is bigger than this. So we have to do that. We have to put that, we have to do it in that order. So I'm gonna go 22 and 98 hundredths. And then we have to line up the decimals, 1 and 8/10. We are subtracting. There's a space right here. There's a gap. So we are going to put a 0 in that gap. Now we just subtract. 8 minus 0 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring my decimals down. 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 2. So we have 21 and 18 hundredths. So hopefully that wasn't too difficult for you. Now, let's look at number 2. Again, number 2, it doesn't say anything about order of operations, but we always have to follow order of operations when we are solving multi-step number sentences or equations. So on this one, I don't see any parentheses, but I do see some exponents here. So we're going to do this first. And you know, the biggest mistake I saw in this last test when we were looking at exponents is a lot of students said that this was 6. It's not. This is 3 to the 2nd power, or 3 times 3. So I'm going to rewrite that as 3 times 3 plus 5, or times 5 plus 4. So I'm going to do this part first. 9, cross it off. Bring everything else down. I know a lot of students try and do things in their head, but that's when you make mistakes, is when you don't make a record of what you're doing. So 9 times 5 is 45. Cross it off. Bring it down. 45 plus 4 is 49. And that is our answer. Okay, moving over to number 3, it wants us to model and solve the problem. So I have 2 that we're splitting into thirds. So I'm going to take these 2 bars and split them into thirds. Well, how many thirds is that? Well, there's 6 of them. So my answer is 6. Now, if you were going to just do the math part of this, it would be, we do what we call is we do what's keep it, change it, flip it. So I'm going to keep the 2, change the division to multiply, and then flip the 1/3 and turn it into 3 over 1. Now, if we have a whole number like we have right here, we can turn into any whole number into a fraction by just putting it over 1. So now all we have to do is multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 over 1 is 6, which is the same as what we got when we did this. So we're going to work on that here in the this next week. So, all right, let's move on to some vocabulary. All right, a couple of things that I do want you to be aware of when we are talking about multiplying fractions is that, first of all, let's talk about a fraction. Let's make a fraction here. We have 3 over 5. Okay, this number on the top of the fraction, it has a name, and we call it a numerator. Okay, you need to be aware that that is the numerator. You also need to be aware that this number right here on the bottom of a fraction is called the denominator. That's important to know, that we have numerators and we have denominators. Now, a couple of other things that you probably should be aware of is sometimes you run into a number that looks like this. We'll just use that same fraction, but we're going to put one thing next to it. Okay, so this is called a mixed number. And a mixed number is nothing more than a whole number, so this is a whole number, with a fraction. And there are a couple of things you can do with a mixed number. You can turn it into an improper fraction. And we talked about this a little bit in our bell work, that 5 times 2 is 10. So we're going to times. Then we're going to add 3. So we would turn that into 13. And then we just take this denominator and move it underneath. 13 fifths. And this is called an improper fraction. So, your ability to take mixed numbers and change them into improper fractions and take improper fractions and change them back into mixed numbers is important. And we will go over that a little bit, but hopefully you've already been introduced to this in 5th grade and you feel comfortable with that. Let's move on. Okay, so this is the notes for your journal, and it is on page 38, and I made a little note of that for me so I could remember. So if you turn to page 38 in your journal, we are going to fill this out right now. So when you multiply fractions, all you have to do is just multiply straight across. So on this problem right here, 7/8 times 1/4, we're going to go 7 times 1 and 8 times 4. And that gives us 7 and 30 seconds. So 7/32 is how you say that fraction. You always need to look at this fraction and see if it simplifies. So we're going to look at some that do simplify, and I have some little tricks to kind of help you out with those. So, unlike adding or subtracting, you do not find common denominators here. Okay, remember, we would go, oh, they're not the same on the bottom. When we add and subtract, we have to make them the same, and we find a common denominator. When you multiply, you don't need to worry about that. To keep it simple, you can also reduce before multiplying. For example, 8/9 times 3/4. I can do a couple of things here to simplify. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of those things. You can do what's called cross products. So I look at this 4 and this 8 because they're across from each other. And I go, do they have any common factors? Well, 4 is a common factor of 4 and 8. And I ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 4? Once. How many times does 4 go into 8? 4 times. Or, I'm sorry, twice. That was bad. Twice. Then you do the same here. You go, okay, do these numbers have any common factors? They do. 3. How many times does 3 go into 3? Once. How many times does 3 go into 9? 3 times. Then you just multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. You can do it that way, or if you would rather, oh, I'm not able to erase this. Let's see, there we go. Or if you would rather, you can actually do this. Okay, I'm going to erase that too, so it's out of the way, because we're going to get the same answer. I can go 8 times 3 is 24, and 9 times 4 is 36. Now, we can use the cake method. We can go 24 and 36. Do they have any common factors? Well, let's start off with 3. 3 goes into 24 8 times. It goes into 36 12 times. Then I have a 4 I can take out of this, and I get a 2 and 3. Okay, there's no numbers that go into 2 and 3, so I know that this is my most simplified version. So I can go, oh, 2/3. And I am done. So if you have a problem with simplifying, just throw it in the cake method, and whatever you have on your top layer of your cake is your simplified fraction. Makes it a lot simpler. Okay, the word of in math, it always means multiply. So Joe's mom spent $60 at Target. 3/4 of that money was spent on groceries. How much did she spend on groceries? So I know that I'm dealing with multiplication because of that word right there. So I'm going to go $60 times 3/4. Put it over a 1. Now you can simplify it, or you can just multiply across. 60 times 3 is 180. And 1 times 4 is 4. Now, there's something wrong with this fraction. Remember, if there's a bigger number on top, it's improper. So let's make this a proper fraction. So I'm going to take 180 and divide by 4. So 4 goes into 180 4 times. Get 1 6. Bring down the 2. 4 goes into 20 5 times. Now, we can, that's the answer. $45 is the answer. So she spent 3/4 of the money was spent on groceries. So $45 was spent on groceries. So that's all there is to that, is that if you have an improper fraction, sometimes you have to divide. All right, I want you to try number 2 on your own and see what you get. So hit pause. When you get the answer, you can hit play, see if you got what I got. All right, let's take a look at your practice. So we're just going to practice this multiplying fractions. So again, we're just multiplying straight across unless we can simplify. I'm checking to see if there's simplification that can happen. Nope. So 1 times 5 is 5. 6 times 8, 48. I'm done because it doesn't simplify. Always check this number and see if it simplifies. If it simplifies, we do it. If it doesn't, carry on. All right, so taking a look at number 2, I'm going to go 7/9. I'm going to rewrite this the way I like it. So 7/9, 3/1. Remember, we can always take a whole number and put it over 1 to change it into a fraction, so we can multiply. So if I just multiply straight across, I'm going to get 21/9. Uh-oh. That looks kind of weird, doesn't it? It's an improper fraction. So what this is really saying, guys, is that I have 21 divided by 9. The fraction thing means divide. So 31 divided by 9. So I'm going to go, 21 divided by 9. So I'm going to go 21 divided by 9. 9 goes into 21 twice. That gives me 18. That gives me 3. So I'm going to bring my 3 up here, bring my 9 over here, 2 3/9. Now, I'm always checking my fractions. Does that simplify? Yes. 3 goes into 9, and so I can simplify this to 2 and 3. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 and 1/3. That right there is my answer for number 2. So, yeah. The reason the students struggle with fractions a lot is because there's multiple steps that sometimes have to be taken. Now, I could have seen on here that when I had the fraction set up, that we could have simplified here, and then we wouldn't have had to simplify this. It would have turned out to be that if I would have simplified right here. And we're going to see that again on number 3. So looking at number 3, I can see that 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 9 3 times, so I can multiply across 8 over 15. I'm done. It's already simplified. So moving down here, let's take a look at number 4. So this is meaning 2/4 times 2/4 times 2/4. That's what that power right there means. So 2 times 2 times 2, we've done that many times, is, should we, well, let's not simplify it. So we're going to go 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. Times 4 is 64. Now, that can be simplified, so we need to simplify it. So we can do it in a couple of different ways. I like to use the cake method, so I'm going to go 8 and 64 right here. Do they have any common factors? If you know your multiplication tables, 8. So that would turn into 1. This would be turning into 8. So there's our simplified fraction right here. 1/8. Okay, moving on. Don't let these make you, let's skip number 5 and go to 6. A lot of people get to these and they kind of freak out, and you don't have to freak out on these. Just follow your steps. It's really hard to multiply a mixed number. So let's change it into an improper fraction before we multiply. So 9 times 5, I'm going to zoom in here. 9 times 5 is 45, right here. Then we have to add 5. So 45 plus 5 is 50 ninths. Then 2 times 10 is 20, plus 7 is 27 tenths. Now, this is a perfect one to see cross simplification because really, how many of you want to multiply 50 times 27? That's going to be a big number. Can you do it? Yeah, you can. But I am always looking, whenever I look at fractions, I am checking this right here. Do they have any common factors here? Do they have any common factors here? If they do, I'm going to make my life a lot easier by going, okay, 9 and 27. 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 27 3 times. I just turned that 27 into a 3 by using a common factor. I can also go, you know what? 10 goes into 10 once, and 10 goes into 5 times. So now I just have to multiply across. 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 1 is 1. Whenever I have a bigger number like this over 1, it's just that top number. So it's 15. All right, so I've gone over quite a few of these with you. Remember, when you run into the word of, that means multiply. So give some of these a try on your own. All right, this right here is your assignment, and we're just practicing that multiplying fractions, looking to see if things simplify, things like... All right, the bell rang. I've run out of time, so give your best shot at doing this assignment. And if you need help, please ask your teacher.